Fast forward, you come out on so how AG Politics Avenue. When you have podcast or training because making headlines. And ya jembre na EDB exomo ewa ni dem ya hobraxium say ene AD kan ya mesre say obitima subscribe to the channel. Hit notification bell, share na afia for front so and sa into me and kabi. Ani dem aya na otimi I leave you comment under the comment section. Now, Mr. say young semu sisi a quick one. Only case in a very shocking. Now, a year NSS Deputy Executive Director, a year Gifty Owari, and at Menoka say a year audit report for fra about to draft for frokra only enyasam kotokra etimia revealed say on kasa say we Deputy Executive Director Emma NSS no. Wotimi ede ne ho ato eye akatua nwoma so a eye national service personnel no dey agye neso wono ankasa etua ne ho ka as NSS personnel a wonu case ni hu kra neso wogi akatua mienu wogi as a deputy executive director na wasan agye eye national service personnel enso alawano wasanji bi onua na wajia ma je say sika ma na accumulate from that fraudulent act no enya asem koto akra me na okasai evidence no atimi abadadi a kian attorney general ebesan afale new case against her enti ma no de well court ni betimi decide say obokwa afiase ana say pre-bargain ebe ye adwuma ni ya gisika na firi no ho na Akuffo akfa ne ho adi anase yemu ransim ni kesi ni hu AG Politics Avenue.
The Auditor General has uncovered staggering financial irregularities amounting to some 2.45 billion Ghana cedis between the year 2018 and 2024. The latest audit report cites system bypass, weak governance, payroll manipulation, and vendor mismanagement among the key causes. Now, in a shocking revelation, the report found that the National Service Deputy Executive Director, Gifty was wrongly placed on the NSS payroll as a service personnel in March 2021, despite being a full-time salaried public officer. Let's bring you excerpts of that financial irregularity that we have just been going through here on the Joy News channel, and that is actually on your screen. Well, some of the key things that have come up really in this report that is quite alarming, and we'll take you through it, just some of the key provisions so that you have a fair idea of what exactly is in the report. Now, when it comes to payment of funds, of NSS funds to internal staff, the report cites that a certain Mr. Jacob Yosin and Mr. Gazy Abraham Bismarck were paid a cumulative sum of 20,234,468.18 Ghana cedis. According to this report, Mr. Jacob Yosin, who is a former IT officer in Northern Region, received 18 million, I beg your pardon, 822,869.82 Ghana cedis through his entity, Yansapo Company Limited, as a vendor, whilst Mr. Gazy Abraham Bismarck, a former head of deployment with vendor Konabab Pa, received a total amount of 1,411,598.38 Ghana cedis via e-switch. And that is detailed in the report. Now, when it comes to unsupported payments to the National Service Personnel Association, the report also raises key concerns, really, that the National Service Secretariat made some payment to the National Service Personnel Association, and this payment, according to this audit report, was made without any formal agreements or memorandum of understanding between the NSS and NASPA. The terms and conditions, the purpose, the scope and conditions under which the funds were transferred is still unknown. There is no evidence of accountability or retirement of funds by NASPA leadership to justify how the monies were applied. And so the Auditor General in his report says the money paid to the National Service Personnel Association amounts to 9,276,535 Ghana cedis. And these payments were made without any formal agreement or MOU signed between both parties. And the Auditor General is raising concerns about it. Now, when it comes to the enrollment and payment of national service personnel, the report finds that individuals who were ineligible or had invalid ages were all enrolled onto the data. And this is shocking. The Auditor General found that personnel below the eligible age of 18 years were enrolled and paid allowances. And personnel above the age of 60, some even as old as 1,027 years old, based on the data, were enrolled. And records showed negative ages in some instances, yet they were paid. And the Auditor General raises concerns that the monies we have lost based on that data finding is 1,973,583.04 Ghana cedis. And so that's detailed in the latest audit reports that we're just spotting here on Joy News. And it's shocking to also state that the details we have shows that the Auditor General's report found out that the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Authority was enrolled herself as a national service personnel from the 16th of March 2021. She was placed on the NSS payroll as a national service personnel despite being a full-time salaried public officer. The enrollment was based on her master's degree, Masters of Public Administration from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and she was placed on payroll and 100% of her monthly allowance for 12 months between the year 2021 and 2022, which is the service period, which amounted to some 6,708.48, because at that time, the national service personnel, they were paid 559 Ghana cedis. That money was paid to her bank account. So these are the latest findings from the Auditor General's report. And joining me now is anti-corruption campaigner Adam Senano, joining the conversation here on The Pulse. We appreciate your time. Quite shocking, the revelation we're finding from the Auditor General's report. Let me start with your initial reaction.
Well, yes, it is shocking. I know that this is something that has been in the works. We had a bit of the information earlier on. But the details, the substantive details, I just tell you that impunity was, something that was just going on. And it's unfortunate that persons who have been reposed with responsibility to chart the course forward for, things like national service would embroil themselves in these kind of situations.
And really, we're seeing quite a number of irregularities. Payments made to the National Service Personnel Association without any contract signed. Quite shocking, isn't it? How is this even happening in our public institutions?
Well, for one, I have always wondered when political appointments are being made, whether the due diligence ensures that these persons have the basic administrative and managerial capacity to take up the roles and functions that they are assigned. It is my view that often that has not been the case, that one has established that historically this person has managed an entity before, has the basic administrative understanding of how processes should be run. For example, if you're going to do procurement, basic thing is you have the 3 invoices, and then you do the least cost, unless you have a reason, a caveat for some other way of purchasing. So I have always worried that many of these persons are only picked because of their political partisan interest or activism. And that does not always provide the skill sets that are required to run, to be the leaders in such public sector institutions. So I'm not too surprised at what we are finding. I think that we should be more intentional in establishing the criteria for selection, screening and selection, so that even if it's going to be somebody that has a certain political, affiliation, these must be persons who understand what it takes to run such agencies.
In every organization, leadership is expected to play an oversight role to ensure that some of the discrepancies we're seeing not occur. But then we're seeing in the Auditor General's report that the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Authority herself was even enrolled as a national service personnel and was paid between the year 2021 and 2022. She was paid. When we see situations like this happen, what then can we do to fix the systemic failures in our public institutions?
The extent that that fact is true, then that is criminality. It reflects intentionality. It means that somebody decided to take advantage of the system and defraud the rest of us. That is to the extent that this is the fact that she actually got herself enrolled, and when the money was paid, she collected it and utilized it. That clearly, then if once they are able to establish that that is the case, and the only thing that deals with that is ethics. It means that you have persons who don't have an ethical framework. For most of the jurisdictions and places where you find that there's a lot of progress, it's on the back of a core set of values. It means that the persons there in leadership have values of honesty, of hard work, of integrity, that they will not put aside because they have a personal interest or a private gain they are seeking to achieve. And so the only way, I think, and it's one of the things that the new National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Action Plan is looking at, is how do we begin to ensure that as a society we have a core set of values and that we begin to, as it were, promote the concept of ethics. Because ethical frameworks, there are things that accountants will not do because their profession says you can't do this. There are things that various groups will not. If you have a strong ethical framework or set of values, you will not find individuals who will just, put aside what they know is in the best interest of the collective and then seek to have private gain for themselves or their family or for other friends that are associated with them.
And for me, I'm quite surprised how this systemic failure still persists, because this is not the first time we're hearing of issues with the payroll audit of the National Service. We've been hearing of ghost names, and it's still occurring. We're seeing individuals who are not even 18 years old on the payroll receiving monies from the state, individuals who are older than 60 years old. In fact, the Auditor General's report tells us that a certain individual was over 1,000 years old. And yet, when you are applying for national service, you would have to appear in person for biometric registration. It then appears that the system is breached from within. Is that not the case?
Well, yes. It tells you there's a systems failure. For example, if we have said that the, let's say the framework for national service is 18 to 35, the electronic dashboard, the digital system itself, should be such that anytime you have an age that is outside this limit, it must refuse for the process to continue so that payment should not be able to happen. So whoever designed our electronic dashboard and system for the payments, this should have been one of the factors. The criteria that says that you are 18 to 35, if you're outside that and you are receiving payment illegally, it should shut down the system. So you are absolutely right, that's a systemic failure. Beyond that is also the failure of our internal audit. And recently I've been highlighting how we have a situation where our auditors are paid by the institutions that they are auditing. We need to change that system, because what it is that the paymaster determines their privileges and perks and their salaries at the end of the month. So even if they would highlight issues, the compulsion, the proactiveness with which they'll follow up issues identified is weakened by the fact that they have their hands in the mouth of these same institutions they accept. So we should have a situation where the payments for such internal auditors are not made by the institution that they're monitoring or reviewing themselves. Otherwise, that defeats the whole purpose of trying to separate them. And that's why we've seen what you are describing, that year out, payroll fraud, so and so. Because the internal audit system, which is supposed to make sure that in between the external auditors and annually, the internal auditors pick up these issues and ensure that they clamp down on it. But because that system is failing, we keep seeing it. So we need to look at our internal audit system currently, make sure they're not being paid by the same institutions that they are auditing. Otherwise, our institutional arrangement defeats the outcome we are trying to achieve.
In cases like this, where should investigators look really to ensure that the individuals involved are held and made to face justice?
Well, I think it is part of the problem there is where we've talked about specialized courts. And we are happy that the president has said that he would establish a specialized court, but we're saying we need many more. Part of our challenge has just been that these cases take forever. On average, now we see that anti-corruption cases in Ghana take a minimum of 2 years to 7 years. In 2 years, most citizens will draw the conclusion that no, nothing is going to happen about it. But in other jurisdictions like Kenya, which I've been citing because I was there earlier in the year for the launch of their integrity plan, the head of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission said, look, we have 12 specialized anti-corruption courts that sit daily for a target of 6 months. The cases being heard should be discharged, completed within 6 months. And in 6 months, obviously, it means that everybody will be aware that this person was arrested, the evidence was brought to court, the person has been jailed, all the money has been retrieved. That's the kind of thing that begins to set the precedent and the deterrent for others not to think that they can get away with the impunity of corruption. So I think that there are a number of things. We need not just one specialized court. We need many more specialized courts across the country. We need the judges, the prosecutors, the investigators trained especially in how to do this anti-corruption work and do it well speedily so we can get better results. And when that is done, also we will need a COPO, the Conduct of Public Officers bill passed, because as you remember, part of our challenge simply is when you take public officers to court, we don't have a comprehensive law at the moment that outlines the sanctions to be applied. So when they get to court, is it a 5 year, is it a 10 year, is it a 20 year, and for what reason? There's no clarity on that. That's part of the challenge we are facing for the cases that we have. So we need to revisit the COPO. It was started in 2016. Next year will be 10 years. We've still not passed it. We need to make sure in that bill we have the issue of reverse burden. So it is not that the state has to bring the evidence to prove where your sources of income are. But once we see that you are spending more than we can legitimately discern as genuine sources of income, you need to explain how you are able to afford these additional assets or why you are flaunting so much wealth when we know your sources of income and they cannot amount to what we see you spending.
Thank you so much, Edem Senanu, anti-corruption campaigner, joined the conversation here on The Pulse. Let me bring in former director of the Ghana School of Law, Kwekwansa Asare. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. This is quite shocking, the revelation we're seeing in the Auditor General's report. But we know that Gifty has been granted bail to the tune of some 10 million Ghana cedis for the case filed earlier. And so with this new revelation, will the AG have to file fresh charges? Educate us legally. What's the next line of action?
I'm very, very candid opinion that the Attorney General should file fresh charges. What the latest was from fraud, and the law is that fraud issues everything. Therefore, if she has misrepresented herself, she defeats the state. And that defeat constitutes fraud. That is one. Two, the earlier bill, I don't know whether it was a police inquiry or the court that granted the bail. If it is police inquiry bail, then the line of least resistance would be, to file fresh charges, arrest her, and make sure that the bail conditions are enhanced to ensure that she remain in the country, to stand a trial. What the revelations coming out now, we don't know whether they are the truth. But you see, if they are fair allegations, the Attorney General will have himself to blame one day. But if they are very, very genuine, charges that can stand the test of time, then I think that this is an opportunity for the Attorney General's office, to get up their loins and do the needful. If a person misrepresents his or her age in order to cheat the system, that is a very serious, offense. You see, now if she holds herself out as an employee and gets paid, when in actual fact, you see a different position or status, I think, they further on, criminality. So I would, urge the Attorney General to, get the thing rescinded, use the, legal process to get the thing rescinded. Whatever ordered, to be vacated on the grounds that they were procured by fraud or tainted by fraud. And since fraud destroys everything, that must be the end of the saga for Gifty.
I would like you to stay with me, because another key issue which I would like to pick your legal brains on is the minority in Parliament, because they've been defending their attempt to stop the vetting of the Chief Justice nominee, Paul Bafabani. The minority this morning filed a notice of motion to halt all.
We and some who team course watch another so I'm not so Jim Elhada, Senator Badiano, Edia Dumbia Dominia, Ebasamba Rem, Nea Soma Consum Socra.